Right, hello everyone. Some people are leaving, some people are coming. And so while we're getting started, before we get into the remarks, which are going to be action-packed and interactive, so please be ready. I'm going to be talking about people and planet. And we say it as two words with an and in the middle, but actually we are connected. And so what I'd like you to do is just take a quick moment in the midst of this day full of so much information up here. We're thinking about great new tech solutions, so many important tools that we humans are creating to drive impact. And sometimes it's important to go back down and get grounded and remember that we're part of this planet that we're working so hard to protect. So if your feet are on the ground, maybe just take a moment to imagine some roots going down all the way through the tunnels and foundations to find their way to some soil. And just remember, as you're listening to what I'm talking about, we have to say people and planet because our language limits us to that, at least my English language, and I apologize for that too. Thank you for listening. But we are connected. So I decided I'm going to use the setup to organize my talk into 5 mini fireside chats. First, we're going to talk about the purpose and the philosophy or practice of 1% for the planet. Then we're going to talk about philanthropy and sort of why that's important. Then we're going to talk about impact, and I'm going to get into some of the numbers of how 1% for the planet is driving change. Then we're going to talk about our theory of change. And then scale. This is kind of the edge of your seat fireside chat. And then I'm going to invite you all to engage. So I'm going to go over here for chat number 1. Does anyone remember what this one is? Purpose and practice. Yeah, so the purpose of 1% for the planet is to inspire action and commitment so that our planet and future generations thrive. And again, you see we have that and, but we're really about planet and people together. And our model is to connect businesses, resources from the business sector, to nonprofits driving impact to drive change. And the model is 1%. So every one of those businesses is giving 1% of their top line sales or turnover to environmental nonprofits. And we engage both communities. We bring in the members, we advise them on their giving, we keep the model as simple as possible. So our members commit, they develop partnerships, they give directly. We're not a foundation, we don't take the money in, they give directly. And then we certify that giving annually. That's how our model works. And our mission, sort of through doing that, our overall mission is to accelerate environmental philanthropy as a way to drive change and to inspire that action and commitment. So that's our purpose and our practice. So now let's talk about philanthropy. So why philanthropy? I know, and especially here, many of you are investors or entrepreneurs, and you're thinking more about how to drive impact in the context of the marketplace. So let's just talk a little bit about that, about how philanthropy can be a really powerful complement to that. So businesses exist to do that, to do what I was just describing, to drive change, to create value in the context of the marketplace. That's how capitalism works. That's the intent. It has, as we know, it has its downsides, but it's a powerful lever for change. The ability to generate those resources and to grow an economy is a really powerful tool. So that's what businesses do. Nonprofits, on the other hand, are able to focus on impact where there's not a marketplace. And that's really important because there are valuable things for planet and people that need to happen where there's not a marketplace or not yet a marketplace. A lot of times nonprofits are building the foundation that can then move into the marketplace. But a lot of time they're focusing on values that will continue to live in a space where there's not a marketplace. An example, just to sort of bring that home, is a nonprofit called Coral Guardians, based here in France, that works globally. Their work is to restore coral reefs that have been damaged by the many practices and warming trends that we're all aware of. there's not really a marketplace for that restoration, for bringing coral reefs back to health. There's some, tourism value for sure, and there's, a lot of reasons that we want coral reefs to be healthy, but there's not an actual marketplace solution. So Coral Guardians and other nonprofits are doing really important work to restore a natural habitat that has value in that impact sense. On the market side, there are companies who are doing things like developing sunscreens that are reef safe so that they will no longer damage coral reefs. That's a great market solution, and that drives impact too. And I bring that point up just to clarify the example, but also to be very clear that our view is not that business marketplace bad, nonprofits not a marketplace good. It's actually that each are different levers for change. And what we're trying to do is put those two together to drive, anyone remember what this seed is? Impact, thank you. So impact, 1% for the planet drives impact. And the big number that we're looking at is the dollars, and we convert all global giving into US dollars, the dollars given through our network to environmental nonprofits. So to give you a sense of kind of the picture of 1% for the planet, of kind of who we are and how big we are, we have about 5,500 members globally. About 1,000 of those are in France, where we have a France chapter. France is the only place where we have a dedicated chapter. And France represents about 20% of our total network member numbers. So that's the member numbers. To date, we were founded in 2002. To date, we have certified $605 million US in giving. And that, the sort of power of that number, one of the powers of that number is that it's made up of hundreds of thousands of small donations, largely small donations from members to nonprofits over the course of those 20 years. So it's a big number that's been reached by many small donations decided by companies on the ground. We're in about 100 different countries. The US is still our biggest network, but we're now 58% outside of the United States and growing. That trend is continuing. France, as I said, is our second largest network outside of the US, and then we have Canada, the UK, Australia, and Germany, but we are represented in 100 different countries. And we're also in 60 different industries. So one thing that's important to sort of realize about not just 1% for the planet, but the opportunity to drive impact is that it doesn't need to be embedded in the particular nature of the business. So it's not like this is only an outdoor apparel opportunity or only a sort of green brand opportunity. We have businesses in CPG, consumer brands, but also in services, in really, you name it. We are across the spectrum. And that's really, really powerful because increasingly consumers are looking at ways that they can use their purchasing dollars to drive change with all of the actions that they're taking. So we've reached 605 million, and we've done that through small donations. So what is the seat that I'm sitting in now? Does anyone remember that? Theory of Change, the name of this session, I believe. And so, what I've talked about thus far is how we do our work. And over the 20 years that we've been doing the work, working toward that purpose, really understanding the lever that is philanthropy, really focusing on and hustling to drive impact through our model, we've realized that one of the things that's really important about 1% for the planet is that we are all those things, and in doing those, we've created a theory of change that is relevant for 1% for the planet, but also beyond that. And that theory of change is that simple, smart actions done repeatedly in a community add up to change at scale. So for 1% for the planet, we were founded in 2002, but before that, Patagonia, we were founded by Patagonia founder Yvon Chouinard. At Patagonia, they were starting to do some giving and sort of playing around with how do you take these marketplace resources and allocate them to drive impact where there's not a marketplace. So we're pretty sure, we've dug back into the files, and we're pretty sure that the first donation that Patagonia made in that context was $6. $6 US, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Not a whole lot of money. Went to a small salmon protection nonprofit in California. So $6, probably about 35 years ago, to 600 million US dollars today and growing. I think we're up to 608 million this week, and that's through our certification process. So as we've seen that acceleration of growth, we've targeted 1 billion US dollars in giving to reach in the next couple of years. We're pretty excited about that. That's, really means that we have to keep that growth rate going, and so we are really working hard to engage new members in our theory of change, to engage more bigger members in our theory of change. So one thing about the composition of our network and sort of how we grow is, I'm gonna move over here because we're gonna talk about scale now. How we grow is that we are building a movement that is intended to drive big impact. So to build a movement, you have to have a large diversity of actors. So we have small pre-revenue startups who join, and they join because they want to be part of this theory of change. They want to step into this community that believes that simple actions done repeatedly over time in community can create change. And we have some amazing stories of members who have stepped into that, and then they've grown, and they've seen how 1% for the Planet has been a remarkable part of their growth story. So one member in particular, just as an example, they joined when they were tiny, and they started at that time to report their success internally with their staff and to their board by reporting on the amount they were able to give away. And it's just math. That's 1% of sales. You can report the sales and do the math and get 1%, but it's a lot more than math. When you focus on that number, the giving number, it really changes how your employees engage. It changes how you think about your success. This company has grown quite a bit with us. It's a Maine beer company, and they've continued to do this reporting, and it's just a really important, subtle way of signaling how important this commitment is. So with that, I want to invite you to sort of think about all these steps and think about that 1 billion goal, and then I'm going to ask you a couple questions. Whether you're an investor or an entrepreneur yourself, so frame this question in a way that fits your particular circumstances. How many of you pay, if you have an office, pay your rent and believe that that's kind of table stakes for a company that has an office? How many of you pay your rent or expect that those companies you're investing in would pay their rent? All right. How many of you make investments to take care of the assets that are sort of core to the business that you're doing or to the portfolio companies that you have? I can't really see you, so I know, but I can tell you're not fully raising your hands, and I'm pretty sure more of you should be raising your hands. Thank you. How many of you believe in, I'll frame the question that way so you don't have to report on what you're actually doing. How many of you believe it's important to pay staff for their work, for your enterprise? Okay, great, thank you. It's really good to see a lot of hands for that. Your staff appreciate that, your employees appreciate that. Okay, so it's probably obvious where I'm going, but I think it's a really important point. If we're not paying the fundamental asset that enables us to do what we're doing, which is the Earth, which is the planet, it's a miss. It's a missed opportunity, and building that 1% of sales in the same way that we pretty comfortably get to the point where we build in other investments in core assets is really critical. And the other thing to think about, and I'll leave you with this, is that when we make that commitment, we are also immediately, through 1% for the Planet, we're immediately expanding our scope of impact because we're taking those resources and we're putting them into the nonprofit space, which is outside of the marketplace. So thank you for participating in the fireside chat, and I'll look forward to meeting some of you after this. Thank you.